guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about the new KKW Beauty Artist and Muse eyeshadow palette. I'm also going to be comparing it to the original KKW Beauty and Mario collab. I'll give you guys some eyeshadow palette comparisons, some swatches, and of course I did my makeup today using the newest palette. So if you guys want to know everything about this new collection, then just keep on watching. Alright, so the Artist and Muse palette retails for $45. It's the exact same price, layout, same amount of shades as the original Mario palette. They're both $45. They both have 10 shades and a mirror. The biggest difference between just the overall layout of both palettes is that the new palette has all the names on the front and not the back. That is very confusing. So I definitely prefer that, but overall, you can definitely see the color schemes are very, very similar. They're both very neutral palettes. And this one even runs a little bit more neutral than this one. Like we do have a pop of purple and blue in here. And then we have more of like a burgundy and more of a muted blue in the Artist and Muse palette. So I want to go ahead and just show you guys some swatch comparisons because I think you're going to be pretty surprised about how similar both palettes are. All right, so here are the closest similarities between both palettes. There are 5 shades that are incredibly similar in both, which is 50% of the palette. So there's a lot of similarities in here. Like you can do very, very similar eye looks with both palettes. So on this side, we have the Artist and Muse palette, and then on the other side, we have the original Mario palette. So starting off, the first 2 shades that are similar are 2008 from the Mario palette, volume 1. I'm gonna call this side volume 1 and then this side volume 2. So from volume 1 we have 2008, from volume 2 we have a beauty campaign. Next up we have the shades Miami and Glam King, and then the third ones are Armenian and I Need More Light, which is what's on my lid today. Then Albanian and I'm Inspired are those darker kind of reddish tone brown shades. And then lastly, the bronzy shades in both palettes from volume 1 is the shade Bronzy. And then the second one from volume 2 is New York to LA. So in the first palette, you can see Bronzy is a lot more pigmented, has more color payoff than New York to LA. But then in this palette, the gold shade, I Need More Light, the one that's on my lid, is a lot more pigmented than that kind of gold shade that is in the original Mario palette. So you have a little bit different textures going on in terms of like how much the metallics pop, but overall the color schemes are very similar. And then the shades that are different in here, they're still kind of like in the same essence. So let's see, like we have this lighter matte shade. This one is So Many Paparazzi. It's like more of a taupey shade. And then we have a very light, of course this is way lighter, but we have that very light matte shade in here as well. We have a blue shade. I'll go ahead and swatch the Artist, which is from the newest palette. And then the blue shade in the original palette is obviously a lot more vibrant and colorful. They're definitely very different shades, but I feel like the essence is the same. Like you can combine these together to do like a lid color, outer corner, like make it a little bit smokier. And then we have this burgundy tone, Mario's Muse in the volume 2 palette, which is gorgeous. I did an eye look with this. And we also have like a purpley, this one's more of a purple shade, but it's like I said, it's kind of in the same color family from the original palette. So you can see just overall, I might as well kind of swatch the whole thing, but that's most of the palette to show you guys. Super similar vibes, super similar undertones. Even the shades that are different, they kind of mesh really similarly together. So definitely super, super similar tones overall. In terms of the formula, they are very similar. I do find that there's a little bit more pigmentation with some of the metallics when it comes to the Artist and Muse palette, the newer palette, which I definitely prefer. One thing that I didn't like about the original palette, the volume 1, this shade 2008, it's a beautiful, like it looks so pretty in the pan. This silver shade is very beautiful, but when you swatch it and when you apply it, it's just like nothing. It turns to baby powder. Like it's so underwhelming. It's kind of like a shadow topper, but it doesn't stick. Like you really need to pack it on. But the shade that's a little similar to that, which is definitely a lot more pink, the shade A Beauty Campaign, so much more pigmented. This is like a lid color that I would wear all the time. So I definitely prefer that so much better from, oh my gosh, that just blends into my skin tone, but just trust me, this shade in the Artist and Muse palette, so much more pigmented, so much more buttery, really pops on the lid a lot more. It's what's in my inner corner today compared to this silver shade from the first palette that is just kind of like a filler. Like this could just go away in this palette to me because these do nothing to me. This is like a setting powder and then this is just chunky, dusty eyeshadow that doesn't even do anything for me. So this is just a waste to me in that palette. And then also, like I said, the golds in both palettes are kind of different. So in the light, or I need more light, the one that's on my lid today, this kind of greenish gold from the Artist and Muse palette is so pretty. I think it's a very unique shade. It's a gorgeous like fall winter shade. And then the shade called Armenian, this shade right here is just a little bit more underwhelming. It doesn't pop as much as I need more light. Like you can see a difference in the texture of both of those shades. The one let down is the bronze shades in both palettes. Definitely New York to LA, and here is super underwhelming. Like honestly, if this was like a very foiled copper color, this would make me so happy because I would wear this all the time. But this is honestly so underwhelming. Like it almost looks matte because it just does not pop at all. But then comparing it to the copper shade in here called Bronzy, this one just feels so much creamier to the touch. And it just goes on so much more smoothly. There's like more dimension, more color payoff to it. So you get a little bit, like some pops that are better in the first palette, some pops that are a little better in the second palette. So those are just some things to know if you want to really stand out copper. Like the one in the original Mario palette is so much better than the one in Artist and Muse. The gold from the new palette is better. The more champagne shade is better in here. Overall, I like the color scheme in here more. I'm gonna go ahead and insert swatches of all 10 shades. I'm sure this was a little confusing. So I'll insert swatches of all 10 shades of the Artist and Muse palette so you guys can see them all. All right, so that is everything for all of the comparisons and swatches. Let's get into the tutorial so you guys can see how I used most of this palette today to do my eye makeup. All right, so we're gonna get right into the palette. I'm gonna start off with some of the matte shades, and then I want to do this gold shade on my lid and the blue on my lower lash line. Basically, yeah, most of this palette I want to use today. I'm going to start with this shade, So Many Paparazzi, and I think I'm going to mix it in with Don't Move. This one's a little bit darker, so I want something in between and just mix those both together as my first transition shade. I do find like there is a bit of kick up with the mattes. They are like very pigmented and creamy for sure. Next, I'm gonna move into this like orangey matte shade Glam King. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a pretty warm crease to go with the gold. So definitely this palette is very neutral. And the more I think about it, it reminds me of like palettes from Estee Lauder or like Lancome, where it's more luxury, like the quality is great, but it does want to stay in that neutral color family. So now you guys can see there's a ton of fallout from using this shadow. So definitely you're gonna get a lot of kick up with the mattes in here. I don't find that it's like super, it doesn't fall out a ton on my face, and when it does, it doesn't stain my face or anything. So I'm gonna take this shade I'm Inspired, this darker burgundy shade, and just pack that on to my outer corner. So the colors do pull like really neutral, like soft brown for most of the matte. All right, so I'm gonna wet a flat brush. I'm just taking this Smashbox primer water. That's what I've been using for my brushes lately until I use this whole thing up. And then I'll switch back to like a Fix Plus or something. But I'm gonna take this gold shade, Need More Light. These metallics are really, really pretty, but they're definitely not like chunkier, like foiled shades. I know I always compare everything to Anastasia, but that is like what I consider like a foiled shadow, or even like the Huda Beauty palettes, they have a lot of foiled shades, whereas I consider these more of just like a standard metallic shade. And then with my flat brush, I'm just taking New York to LA. This is just like a copper shade. I just want a little bit in the outer corner just to have a little bit of shimmer. This is one shade I do wish was a little bit more that popped a little bit more. All right, so I just added a brown eyeliner from Urban Decay. This is like the only eyeliner I use with every single eye look. And then I'm gonna move into my lower lash line. I'm gonna start off with, I'm gonna just go in with a little bit of Glam King and then finish it off with the Artist, the blue shade in there. Just wanna smoke it out first a little bit with Glam King, the more bronzy shade. I really do like this deeper blue shade because it almost pulls like a little bit gray or like silvery, so it's not as much of like a pop of blue. It just kind of makes it look a bit more smoky and just adds a little something more interesting. So I'm ending up kind of getting a little bit heavy with the blue just because I want it to add a little bit more to this eye look than just like a simple gold shadow, you know? So I just added on some lashes and it made me really like this color combination. Like I really love the blue lower lash line because it doesn't pop out too much and it goes with like all of the warmer tones. I'm just gonna finish off with a Beauty Campaign in the inner corner. All right, so eyes are done. I'm just gonna add on the lip liner I bought from the collection. This one's in the shade Beauty Icon. I wore this yesterday all over my lips and I actually really like the formula because it is matte, but it's still very pigmented and comfortable. I'm also surprised that I bought a shade this dark. I think I was just panicking when I was checking out. I actually purchased the palette like 4 times and then I kept getting an error. But I just wanted to make sure it didn't sell out. So I got this color. I think I meant to get like a nude, but that's totally fine because I wanted like a deeper, I don't have enough shades this color and I have a ton of nudes in my collection. All right, so my makeup is complete. This lip color is very dark, it's very matte, but it's also very comfortable. I'm really impressed with this lip liner. It's very pigmented too. Like I feel comfortable wearing it on its own. I've worn it with a lip gloss too, so I definitely want to try out more lip products from KKW Beauty. Honestly, this is my entire KKW Beauty collection. I bought like most of it in the past week, so I want to give you guys just like all my final thoughts about the palette, how they compare to each other and everything. Okay, so I don't have necessarily cons with this palette. Like every box that I normally want to check with an eyeshadow palette, it's there. The price point, the amount of shadows, the variety, the formula, the pigmentation is great. Just overall, everything's good with the quality of the eyeshadows. I really like all the tones. I'm definitely gonna wear all the tones. I like that this is like a collector's item. That's honestly why I purchased the first one too. I've never really been interested in other KKW Beauty palettes per se. I mean, I've seen them and I've liked them, but not enough to actually spend my money on them because they all kind of look very similar, but because it's a collab with Mario, I did want to purchase it, and because I do have the first one, I wanted to have both of them. So I did honestly buy this mostly because it was the Mario palette and also because the shades are something I'm actually going to wear for sure. The one downside that can be a huge downside for a lot of people is that I think you can get bored with this palette very quickly. So if you're looking for creative looks, I think you're going to get like underwhelmed with this palette for sure, because sometimes I can look in this palette and want to do an eye look, but it's not going to have necessarily everything I want to do something a little bit more interesting than like a brown or a gold or a champagne smoky eye. Granted, that's what I do like 90% of the time, so it's not like a huge deal for me. But I also do have a lot of other palettes that have similar tones that pop out a bit more. I think for me, some of it is just, yeah, all the mattes are very standard in here. They're all the same texture and formula, but then also all the metallics are the same texture and formula, so you're not gonna have a lot of variety of your eye looks in general because they're already very neutral tone. Even when I think of like my Tarte Toasted palette, let me actually pull that out. All right, so here's an old favorite, Tarte Toasted. It's a mess because I actually still wear it all the time. So you have your matte shades, and then your shimmers, you have a lot more pigmentation and color payoff with them, and then you have some different textures with the shimmer, and then you have like this matte with a glitter in it. So there's a way to do like very neutral palettes without, compared to like the bronzy shade in this palette that's like a lot softer. There's a way to do, like this one's just like way toned down for me. Like I wish it was like a really rich copper shade. Like it just is See how there's like more of a reflective quality here compared to this one. And this is just like super, super random swatches just to kind of get my point across. And I also pulled out California Love, a $12 palette from ColourPop that I absolutely love. You guys can see how the colors are like just as neutral in both palettes, but you get more interesting textures and formulas in here compared to this one. Like this is just, I don't know a better word to describe it, as like more flat and one-dimensional compared to this. Obviously, you're gonna get more literal three-dimensional looks with glitters that are like popping. But like this shade Diego from the ColourPop palette, like you're getting a lot more metallic pops and even just like a darker shimmer in here as well. Like these all feel super, super like creamy. They look like wet on the eye. And you don't need every shadow to look like that, but I think if you just add a little bit of variety, especially in a neutral palette, otherwise it just looks so monotone. That's definitely one downside for me with the palette. Like I said, the metallics, the formula is actually great, but there could be other textures in here to just make it a little bit more interesting. I think it just feels like a very safe palette, and I think that's kind of like the whole point, is the standard looks that Mario does on Kim, like red carpet looks, like very just smoky evening eye looks, nothing like super crazy. So I think if that's what you're looking for, you would actually really enjoy this palette. But if you're looking for a neutral palette, like there's other neutral palettes with similar shades that can be a little bit more exciting, that you could do more creative things with. Like even this one's so basic, but I feel like I can do more interesting looks with this compared to the Mario palette. So definitely let me know how you guys feel about that, because there's part of me that actually really loves this palette. Like I love the quality, I love the shades. I'm gonna wear every shade in here, but I feel like I can get bored with this palette really quickly, which makes me a little bit nervous that like 3 months from now, this isn't gonna be a palette I'm reaching for. So I feel like that's mostly like my point. It's a good palette, good formula, but it's a little just underwhelming. Like it's a little average to me in the sense of kind of the color story and the textures in here. So those are basically all my thoughts about the Artist and Muse palette. I do like it better than the original Mario palette. I know there's more pops of color in here, but to me, I had to kind of go out of my way to use those shades a little bit more. And the new palette, the Artist and Muse palette, these are all shades I wear all the time. Like I can equally hit pan on every single shade in here, and that's why I really wanted to get it instead, or in addition to the other palette. But I knew that I would like this one more than the original palette. But that is gonna be everything for today's video. Let me know if you guys ended up purchasing this palette. Let me know if you have the first palette with Mario. Just let me know your overall thoughts about the brand. Like I said, these are the only products I own from the brand. I obviously don't buy too much from KKW Beauty. It's not a brand that I really follow super closely, but then when I see a collection like this, I do wanna take advantage and pick something up and see what the hype is about. So let me know all of your thoughts in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.